The morning sun slowly rose above the tall buildings of a busy American city. Soft golden light spread across the streets and touched the windows of old apartments and small houses. A cool breeze moved gently through the quiet roads while the city slowly began to wake up. Cars started moving. People began walking to their jobs. Coffee shops opened their doors and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Inside a small and old apartment on the third floor of a worn-out building lived a man named David. David was not rich. He did not have a big house or expensive clothes. His life was simple and sometimes very difficult. But David had something more valuable than money. He had his daughter. Her name was Emma. Emma was 8 years old. She had bright eyes full of curiosity and a smile that could light up even the darkest day. Her laughter filled the small apartment with warmth and happiness. Every morning Emma woke up early and ran to hug her father. "Dad, good morning." David always smiled when he heard her voice. "Good morning, my princess." Their apartment was small and old. The walls had small cracks and the paint had faded over the years. The kitchen was tiny and the furniture was simple. But inside that little home there was love. A lot of love. David raised Emma alone. Emma's mother had passed away when Emma was very young. Since that day David had promised himself something important. He would give Emma the best life he possibly could. Even if it meant sacrificing everything. One quiet morning Emma sat at the small kitchen table eating a simple breakfast of toast and milk. She looked thoughtful. David noticed the expression on her face. "What are you thinking about, Emma?" Emma looked up and smiled. "Dad, when I grow up I want to become a doctor." David paused for a moment. Emma continued speaking with excitement. "I want to help sick people. I want to make them feel better." David looked at his daughter with deep pride. Her dream was big. Bigger than their small apartment. Bigger than their difficult life. David gently smiled. "You can become anything you want, Emma." Emma's eyes sparkled with happiness. "Really? Of course. Do you believe in me, Dad?" David placed his hand softly on her head. "I believe in you more than anything in the world." Emma hugged him tightly. At that moment David made another silent promise to himself. No matter how hard life became, he would help Emma reach her dream. Even if it meant working harder than ever before. And that is exactly what he did. Every day David woke up before sunrise. While most of the city was still sleeping, he quietly left the apartment so Emma could rest. His first job was at a construction site. The work was heavy and exhausting. David carried bricks, lifted wood and helped build large buildings under the hot sun. His hands became rough and strong from years of hard work. But he never complained. After finishing his shift he rushed across the city to his second job. He worked at a small grocery store, stacking shelves, cleaning floors and helping customers. The hours were long and the pay was small. But David accepted it because every dollar mattered. When evening arrived David did not go home to rest. Instead he started his third job. He drove a taxi through the busy streets of the city. Late at night he picked up tired workers, travelers and strangers who needed a ride. Sometimes the city streets were loud and crowded. Sometimes they were silent and empty. David often drove for hours without stopping. By the time he returned home it was very late. Sometimes he was so exhausted that he fell asleep on the sofa before reaching his bed. But every morning when Emma hugged him he felt strong again. Emma grew older with each passing year. She was a bright student. Her teachers quickly noticed her intelligence. She loved reading books and studying science. She asked many questions about the human body and how doctors helped people heal. David always listened carefully. Even when he was extremely tired he helped her with homework and encouraged her to keep learning. One evening Emma was studying at the small wooden table. David entered the apartment quietly after a long day of work. His clothes were dusty and his shoulders looked heavy with exhaustion. Emma looked up. "Dad, you look very tired." David smiled softly. "I am okay, Emma." Emma walked over and hugged him. "You work too much, Dad." David gently laughed. "I work just enough." Emma looked confused. "Just enough for what?" David looked into her eyes. "Just enough to help you reach your dream." Emma did not fully understand the sacrifices her father was making. But she knew one thing. Her father loved her more than anything. And that love gave her strength to study harder every day. Years continued to pass. Life was still not easy. Money was always limited. Sometimes bills were difficult to pay. Sometimes David worried about the future. But he never allowed Emma to see his fear. Because he wanted her to believe that everything was possible. One cold winter night, snow covered the streets of the city. David was driving his taxi through the quiet roads. The wind was strong and the night was freezing. David had already been working for almost 16 hours. His eyes felt heavy. His hands felt weak from exhaustion. But he kept driving. Because Emma's dream was waiting. The cold winter night was silent and heavy. Snow slowly fell from the dark sky and covered the quiet streets of the city. Streetlights reflected on the white snow and the whole road looked peaceful but lonely. David continued driving his taxi through the empty streets. His body felt extremely tired. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. He had already worked at the construction site and the grocery store earlier that day. But he still continued driving. Because every extra dollar meant a better future for Emma. Finally, after many hours, he returned home. The small apartment was warm and quiet. Emma was asleep on the couch with her school books beside her. She had been studying while waiting for her father. David slowly walked toward her. He gently placed a blanket over her shoulders so she would not feel cold. For a moment he simply stood there watching his daughter sleep. A soft smile appeared on his tired face. He whispered quietly, "I promise, Emma, one day your dreams will come true." David sat down on the old chair beside the window. Outside, the snow continued falling. Inside the apartment everything was peaceful. But deep inside David's heart there was always a small fear. What if he could not give Emma the future she deserved? What if life became even harder? But every time those thoughts appeared, David pushed them away. Because hope was stronger than fear. The next morning Emma woke up early for school. Sunlight slowly filled the apartment. She walked into the kitchen and saw her father preparing breakfast. "Good morning, Dad." David turned and smiled. "Good morning, my princess." Emma noticed something. Her father looked more tired than usual. She looked at him carefully. "Dad, did you sleep last night?" David laughed softly. "Of course I slept." Emma raised an eyebrow. "You are not a very good liar, Dad." David chuckled. "Maybe not." Emma walked closer and hugged him. "You should rest more." David gently touched her hair. "I will rest when you become a doctor." Emma laughed. "That might take a long time." David smiled proudly. "I can wait." At school, Emma continued working hard. Her teachers were impressed by her dedication. She stayed after class to study. She borrowed extra books from the library. She asked many questions and always wanted to learn more. One afternoon her science teacher stopped her after class. "Emma, you are one of the brightest students I have ever taught." Emma felt shy. "Thank you." The teacher continued speaking. "If you keep working this hard, you could one day study at a great university." Emma's eyes widened. "A real university?" "Yes." Emma felt excited but also nervous. University sounded like a distant dream. When she arrived home that day, she told her father everything. David listened carefully. His heart filled with pride. "You see, Emma, I told you anything is possible." Emma smiled but then looked worried. "Dad, university is very expensive." David stayed silent for a moment. Then he spoke with confidence. "We will find a way." Emma looked at him. "Are you sure?" David nodded. "I promise." From that day Emma studied even harder. But David also worked harder. Sometimes he accepted extra shifts. Sometimes he drove his taxi until sunrise. His body became weaker but his determination grew stronger. One evening something unexpected happened. David returned home earlier than usual. Emma was surprised. "Dad, why are you home so early?" David sat down slowly on the chair. He looked exhausted. "I just needed a little rest tonight." Emma became worried. She sat beside him. "Dad, are you okay?" David forced a small smile. "I am fine." But the truth was different. David had started feeling pain in his chest during work. He ignored it for weeks. Because he believed he could not afford to stop working. Emma looked at him carefully. "You should see a doctor." David laughed quietly. "A doctor costs money." Emma suddenly felt emotional. "But you always tell me that health is important." David looked at her with gentle eyes. "And one day you will become the doctor who reminds people about that." Emma held his hand. For the first time she truly began to understand how much her father sacrificed. That night Emma made a promise to herself. She would work harder than ever before. Not only for her dream, but for her father. Outside, the city lights shined under the dark sky. Inside the small apartment, a father and daughter continued fighting for a better future. They did not have much. But they had something powerful. Hope. And sometimes hope is stronger than anything else.